welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we're doing on Sunday evening in Europe, which is where Tim Bontemps is joining us tonight from Budapest, Hungary.
Hello, everybody.
And joining us from Dallas, Texas, so I think he's spending this week in Los Angeles doing NBA Today, is Dan MacMahon.
Howdy, partners. They were just searching through the bargain bin, and they found me. Wendy's overseas. Bontemps bolted to Budapest, and so they settled for Dan MacMahon.
Speaking of Budapest,
I've been selling for Dan MacMahon for years, buddy.
Well, speaking of Budapest and being in Europe, it's a sort of a whiz of the quiz, but I've been over here for about a week, and I've seen a handful of NBA stuff over the last week. The vast majority for one team. I'm curious what team you guys think that would be.
So it must not be the Lakers, because otherwise you wouldn't be asking this.
It is not the Lakers.
Has there been a Hungarian?
No, I just got put to Budapest today. This is primarily from Munich and Vienna, where I've been the last week.
So we're talking German influence there. Dirk.
Nope, not that. I didn't see a single Mavericks thing.
Bronze?
Didn't see a single Magic thing.
Really?
Yep.
Germany. It's too early to get your Daniel Tice Pelicans jersey.
No Daniel Tice jerseys. The answer, sort of stunningly to me at least, is the Chicago Bulls.
Really?
I saw multiple
Legacy.
Derrick Rose Chicago Bulls jerseys. Saw lots of Chicago Bulls shirts, lots of Chicago Bulls hats. Thought that was very interesting.
Any jerseys?
What'd you say?
Any Josh Giddey jerseys?
No Josh Giddey jerseys. Not yet. Not yet.
I will say, just in general, anecdotally, the merch situation in Europe for the NBA is completely underserved. I remember being here last year with Victor Wembanyama, and you just couldn't get Metropolitan's 92 stuff. That team, by the way, has since folded.
Yeah.
But you would think that that team is looking to do, I mean, just in general, and I don't know if this is the French way. Let's just say they're not exactly into maximizing revenue. First off, they are not selling alcohol at the events at all. And obviously, some people might think that would make things better, but I was talking to someone who works with LA 28, who is over here. And that person was like, tens of millions of dollars they are leaving on the table. They will be selling alcohol. I suspect
we'll be selling booze in LA. That's my guess.
But let's put that aside. The merch situation I'm not even a merch guy. The merch situation here is a travesty. Okay. First off, there are people from all around the world here. You can't get team specific gear. It's just not available. You want Team Germany gear, you want Team Netherlands gear, you want Team USA gear. It's not available. I suppose maybe some of these countries have their own, there's this thing, the USA House. Maybe you can get it there.
What is available? I never thought of this before.
Crap. Crap is available. Okay. They don't have many merchandise stores. Okay. And the ones that they do have are limited in hours. Like if you go to the swimming venue, they have it outside the venue, but it ain't available at like 8 a.m. You got to wait until it's swimming time. You go to the basketball outside the basketball hours, it's not available. And even when it is open, it's not good. The merch is not good. Like first off, I don't know why they're not selling gear of the teams. That there must be some sort of licensing reason, but I can't believe that can't be overcome. And then the actual Olympics gear stinks. It's awful. Okay. I would a friend of mine went to the golf. When they have major golf tournaments, they construct the merchandise tent 6 months before the tournament, and they keep the merchandise tent up 6 months after. I don't think you can buy a polo that says, I think you can buy like a shirt, like you can buy, and the shirts aren't even that good. So like, The French are doing some things very good. This Olympics is going fine. The traffic is going fine. Like there has been no problems, knock on wood.
Traffic good, merchandise.
The merch is a travesty.
I won't even ask for a free t-shirt.
You don't want it. You don't want it. I'm serious. Like you get there and you like look at the selection, you're like, is that all there is? Here, you know what? Pause. I will show you what some of the merch looks like because I did get
here
some.
We go.
Oh,
Here we go.
all right.
Okay.
We get a free.
You did not
look.
like the selection.
Great.
Here we go. What do we got here?
and I'm gonna be honest with you. I just did the best I could.
I'm going to describe for the pod listeners what we're getting here. Because we're about to end the swimming meet with a gold medal and a world record, which is nice.
The hat.
So we got a Paris hat.
That's the best. I actually, in my opinion, the hat's the best you can get.
No, is the hat fire?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It's fine. This is like kind of. First off, the official colors are like 3 different shades of green, like fluorescent. Like the official shirt is like fluorescent green. I just don't think people want that. This is this is what you're getting. Like
Windy anti-green. Wait till Draymond hits that.
this is you can get like this in 2 colors.
Right.
That's it.
Is that a flame with a mouth on it?
Well, here's the thing, guys.
No, a flaming lip. What is that?
This is the official logo for Paris. It's the torch. Okay, it's the torch.
Is it a torch or is it a woman's mouth? That's what it looks like to me.
There is yes, there is something going on down here. I don't exactly know what that is. It may be a double entendre, but let me just say that it is supposed to be a torch, the Olympic torch, you would say, except for this isn't what the torch looks like in Paris, which is another thing. This is it. This is the best you got, like in like 2 different colors.
Nice gray t-shirt. How's the material?
No, it's man, what did I tell you? A travesty.
No dry fit, none of the stretchy stuff.
Well, actually, I think the Nike store has some good stuff, and I'm going to go to that before I, but they can get you team. Here's in a different color.
Okay.
But it's a darker version of the same shirt for the pod listeners, as we're going through a visual representation.
Guys, I'm no clothes horse.
You're a Windhorst.
It stinks. Okay, that's my commentary.
All right,
LA 28, bring the merch.
Can I
gotta lift the game.
Can I sort of take us in a different direction with a bit of a non sequitur?
Yeah.
I saw our colleague Tim Reynolds from the Associated Press wrote a story, I believe Friday or Saturday of this weekend, where he quoted Adam Silver saying he believes there could be some sort of league or tournament the NBA gets involved with in Europe in the future. What do we think of that as a possibility or idea going forward?
I do think the NBA is in the mood to expand with overseas stuff. They're involved in Africa pretty heavily now, but the apparatus for first off, David Stern gave interviews like, with all due respect, I appreciate the story. David Stern gave interviews like this routinely over the decades, and nothing ever happened. From my viewpoint, spending a lot of time in Europe the last 2 years, the apparatus to create any sort of revenue that could support a team is not there. So unless the NBA wants to put a giant bill, like for example, in France, you watch the games on Max. HBO Max has all the Olympic rights in France. It's been a very good product. I watch it. It's on Eurosport. I want to point out Tim Long and Liam Canny, who are the play-by-play. Tim Long is the play-by-play guy, and Liam Canny are doing the play-by-play and color commentary for all the Olympic basketball games in Europe on Eurosport in English, and they are excellent. Excellent. Tim Long should be doing NBA games. I've never met him. I'm just telling you, he's spectacular, and he has an English accent, and he would be an instantaneous hit. I think, doing NBA games.
So we're
in
currently
America.
on French
But
merchandise and
I know. Well, I'm telling you,
the international broadcast.
I'm talking to you about what it's like in Europe here, buddy. You can't get
Yeah.
gear. In Hungary are going with Chicago Bulls gear from '95 that their older brothers and fathers passed down to them. The
Nike store does have some
what I'm
gear.
telling you
Actually,
about Max is
Bean jerseys
there's no
in there.
commercials. There's no commercials. I mean, that's nice and all, but like that's not a way to operate. You know, they're not focused on revenue here. And the NBA
Well, and the other thing,
does revenue.
well, also, why does Europe need the NBA's involvement? Like,
Well,
Euro
this was the interesting
happened for a
quote.
long time. It's
Yeah,
and
this
after
was
they needed the NBA's involvement. They don't need it in Europe.
this was the quote that I thought was interesting. We certainly haven't made any definitive decisions. I continue to believe there's enormous opportunity here. It's not something we'll transform a league structure in the short term. But I think there's an appetite among our team owners for additional investment in global basketball. We have a huge initiative in China. We have a huge initiative in Africa. Given the quality of basketball here in Europe, it would seem to make sense that we should be doing something here as well. I think the interesting sentence there is the one in the middle, but I think there's an appetite among our team owners for additional investment in global basketball. This all goes back to the same thing we have talked about a lot, which is that as the Boston Celtics are up for sale, as some other teams have gone up for sale, what is the thing that is happening? The valuations for franchises continue to go up, and the number of people that are around in these states in particular, but even around the world that can buy these teams continues to get smaller. So if you continue to have games in Abu Dhabi, have games in, the Spurs are now playing 2 games against the Pacers this year in Paris. Victor Wembanyama, first time a team has played back-to-back games there in a season. Obviously, they're going to take advantage of that. The more of these things that happen, the more, to me, it's a signal that the league is trying to grow itself outside of here, outside the States as much as possible, to give it as much opportunity to bring in additional revenue.
But the thing about it is, and we're going to talk about the Olympics here in a second. I know we're all over the place here. There's not money for investment in Europe. They're not investing in the teams they have now. Okay. There's literally 3 NBA quality arenas over here. And I realize you don't have, one in London, which is not a basketball venue, the O2, one in Paris, which couldn't even make room for the basketball in the Olympics for the whole time. And one in Berlin. Okay. Yeah, these teams all play in gyms, but they're not NBA venues. The difficulty with overseas investment is where the money is politically fraught. The money is in China and the money is in the Middle East. And that's a broad statement, but as somebody who spent time in China and the Middle East and in Europe, I can tell you the great basketball is in Europe. The money is in China and in the Middle East. They don't have good basketball. They have crap basketball. So that's the NBA's problem. Where the money is and where the good basketball is are 2 different places.
We got a lot of crap on this podcast, MacMahon.
Yeah. Also, I'm going to say something else.
Isn't Paris a city of...
I've been wearing a lot of, suit coats here, but
yesterday... wait a minute. All I've seen you on TV in is a polo.
And there's a reason. And there's a reason for that. And there's a reason for that. No, mostly it's been suit coats.
Okay.
Adam Silver is wearing polo shirts here. I had never seen Adam Silver in my life not wearing a suit. If Adam Silver can wear a polo shirt, damn it, I can wear a polo shirt. So that's just the way it's going to be. All right?
Okay.
Oh, well.
Now we're going to talk about all we have left is the greatest medal round of an international basketball tournament, in my view, in the history of the sport, because that's what we have starting on Tuesday. So that the pairings.
Really?
You disagree?
I mean, we'll talk about it. I'm not 100% sure that's the case.
I think the argument is this is a USA team that talent-wise stacks up fairly well to any. I mean, I don't really feel like having the whole dream team versus this team.
No, for sure.
And the talent around the world has gotten better and better and better.
Let me tell you,
multiple first-team All-NBA players on other teams.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the deepest. I guess where I would wonder is there a team like the '08 and 12 Spain in the tournament? That is where I would probably wonder. And that's, I guess, the question. Like, I don't know if there's going to be a game like the '08 gold medal game, for
Well, I
example.
can't, there's no way I can possibly predict what the quality of the individual games is going to be. I'm speaking about the quality of the 8 teams that are still left. And so you're talking about Greece with Giannis. You're talking about Serbia with Jokic, Canada with 10 NBA players. But anyway, here are the pairings. The U.S. is playing Brazil. Brazil is sort of the Cinderella team of this summer. They and this obviously Porzingis not being able to play for Latvia was a huge factor in this, but Brazil went to Latvia and beat Latvia in Latvia to qualify. An upset. The other like Greece qualified, they won at home. Puerto Rico qualified, they won at home. So they win in Latvia, then they come in here and they, by the skin of their teeth, squeak into the medal round because they had a big game against Japan. They have one current NBA player, which is Yi Santos, who is he's not on a two-way anymore, is he? Right, Bontemps? They signed him to a multi-year deal. He started off as a two-way player for the Warriors.
He got a standard contract last
He
year.
is a non-guaranteed. He's on a non-guaranteed
Okay.
deal with a team option for the following year.
Okay. So they have a bunch of former NBA players, including
Bruno.
Marcelio Huertas, who was 41 years old. Is their point guard. Bruno Caboclo is been their best player. He hasn't played in the NBA in 3 years, but
He's 4 years away from another Olympic bid.
I don't know where he's playing, but I'm sure he's doing a hell of a job. He did have 33 points against Japan the other day. Also, they're a very good offensive rebounding team, and they're the number one offensive rebounding team in the tournament. And
He's playing for Partizan. I mean, he's become a good EuroLeague player.
Yeah,
Partizan. He's
Partizan.
probably a guy who could play in the league if somebody wanted to sign for a minimum.
Yeah, so Brazil is a very good offensive rebounding team. Team USA has been weak on the defensive glass. They've allowed 16 more offensive rebounds than they have offensive rebounds. So that's a minor issue. Also, Brazil has been red hot from three-point range. They're shooting, I think, 43 or 44% from three-point range. Actually, I think 45% three-point range, and they're making 11 a game. So when you get into the realm of how do you stay close to the U.S., the possession, you somehow get the possession edge and you make your threes, which is what Brazil has been doing. That said, they're 1-2. They squeaked in with due to point differential. Okay, that's one semifinal. The other one quarterfinal. The other quarterfinal on the US's side is Serbia against Australia.
It's an interesting one.
I have been saying for a month, I think Serbia is the biggest challenge to the US in a gold medal game. They can't play in the gold medal game. The best they can do is the semis. The U.S. has beaten Serbia by 20 points twice. I kind of remain convinced. Germany is up there. We'll talk about them in a minute. But I kind of remain convinced that Serbia is still the biggest threat to the U.S., with one caveat on Canada, which I'll talk about in a minute. But and I know it's a tough sell because you'd say, well, they just beat them by 26. The only thing I can say about it is that both times the U.S. played Serbia, they've been red hot from three-point range. Red hot. The one game, I think they shot 50%, and the other game, I think they shot over 50%. And in the game that they played last weekend, Jokic's plus minus was 0. The game was even when he was on the court, and when he was off the court, it was minus 26.
And how many minutes was that minus 26?
I'd have to go look.
I mean, it was single digits.
It was like eight, but that was like it might not have mattered because
3 score.
Yeah, is that what it was?
It was 29-3.
Oh my God! Well, here's the thing. That coincided with Durant having one of the hottest stretches we've ever seen.
Yep.
Maybe if Jokic is on the court, Durant still lights the heck out of him, and it doesn't matter. So I don't want to make it sound, but I'm just saying, like, Jokic probably will play almost the whole game in that situation. So just keep that in mind. The Serbia makes the U.S. uncomfortable. The way they play makes the U.S. uncomfortable, and that is That is just, a fact. The the Canadians won the group of death. And as a result for them winning the group of death, they had the smallest differential, I can't remember what it was, but there were 3 teams that were undefeated: the US, Germany, and Canada. Canada had the smallest differential, not because they didn't play well, but because they had such a brutal group. And so their reward for that is that their quarterfinal game is against France, which is, again, Bontemps, you may be right. This may not end up being the most competitive, but find me a quarterfinal that has the quality of France versus Canada that has.
Well, I mean, is France good?
Well, that's a good question.
I mean,
France
they've been
well
disastrous in this tournament.
I mean,
Yeah.
honestly,
Well, they're 2-1. They haven't been that disastrous.
Brian,
boy, the
Brian,
Japan game.
what are we doing here?
Well, the Japan game was a pretty. If
they needed an absolute miracle they needed an absolute miracle between Rui Hachimura getting ejected from the game and a 4-point play miraculously in the final seconds of regulation to beat Japan at home to even make the medal round.
Agree. But they have to play Victor Wembanyama in Paris.
Sure.
As their reward for winning the group of death.
Sure.
That's my point. Vincent Collet, the French head coach, basically called Victor a ball hog after the game the other day. Now, he said that the ball's sticking in his hands too much. Victor is shooting 42% from 3-point range in the Olympics, and people think that he's not going inside enough. Where have you heard this before? So that's a challenging game for the Canadians.
Well, the one thing I'll say about the ball sticking with Victor is the problem with passing it is he doesn't have very good teammates.
That's true.
I mean, they have a hard time scoring, and it's not because the ball's in his hands too much. Fournier's had a really rough Olympics. Certainly hadn't done anything to try to extend his NBA career during these Olympics. Batum's a nice complimentary player.
Batum's had a couple of moments.
I mean, the guards just aren't good enough. We've been talking about this for a month plus now. Like, their guards, they're going up against, and we probably need to talk about a certain guard in the Canadians, but they're going up against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, right? But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander against, nobody of that caliber, or even close on the other side.
Evan Fournier is shooting 29% on 2-point shots in this.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously that's not going to get it done. That's the biggest understatement of all time.
Yeah, but Victor, here's what Victor is averaging: 17 points, 3 steals, 2 blocks, 11 rebounds, 3 assists. He's shooting 44% on threes, 53% on twos, 49% overall.
Yeah, and they're staggering him and Gobert a lot. That's a rough. I mean, it's the same. Like, Victor's a center. Like, that's obvious. The Spurs found that out through trial and error early last season. But again, the problem is those two guys are by far their best players, and they don't have any good guards.
Yeah. But it's a tough ask for Canada to have to play that game in the quarters. And keeping in mind that the French, as much as they may be flawed with this team, they did win the silver medal before. So you're talking about a team that, knows what it's doing. We'll talk about the Canadians in a second. The other quarterfinal is Greece against Germany. Greece, Giannis is putting up preposterous numbers. He is averaging 27 points, the most in the tournament. 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.5 steals. He's shooting 73% on 2-pointers, 69% overall. He's only made 1 3. And he's making 67% of his free throws.
He's pretty good.
Yeah. And so obviously
there's the end of the Greek team discussion.
Yeah. Obviously, they have a couple other players. Thomas Walkup is a naturalized American who's a pretty effective point guard for them. Certainly, if Thomas Walkup was a naturalized Frenchman, it would, that's the kind of player like they would need actually. But yes, you're correct. It really comes down to, can Giannis create some sort of special moment? They squeaked through on point differential. Were able to get ahead of South Sudan. But
with some controversy, Luol Deng and Royale Ivy were both pretty critical of the officiating after a 31-6 free throw advantage for the Serbians.
And I didn't see the game. I was that was after the U.S. game, and I was doing my post-game duties and interviews and stuff like that. It's not the first time they've complained about officiating, so maybe they have a point, or maybe they just complain about officiating. I don't know. I know that Serbia is pretty good. So, but I didn't see it.
It's hard to defend Joker without fouling him if you're just completely overmatched. But 31-6 is a pretty glaring number.
It's a big gap.
And I will say this about Serbia, because whatever commentary there is about their team isn't in English, I'm not seeing it. So maybe this is a huge discussion in Belgrade. Jokic doesn't have the ball in his hands for Serbia like I would think that he does. They don't play NBA style basketball, obviously, but to me, you give the ball to Jokic and just let him go to work. They don't play that way.
It's also, so many of these national teams have the advantage of continuity. And certainly, you talk about Germany as the defending World Cup champions and as a threat to medal this year. That's their huge advantage, where Serbia doesn't have that with Joker because he's basically a part-time national player.
True, but, may not be the worst idea to play to his strengths.
Giannis is a part-time national player, and he tends to have the ball in his
I don't know. I don't think they've got usage rate. At least it's not in my stat broadsheet. So I'd like to maybe find that out. But as for Germany, they have been incredibly impressive. They were extremely impressive last year in the World Cup. They played terrific team basketball, and Franz Wagner is having just a spectacular summer. He's played great against the U.S. a couple of weeks ago. He's averaging 22 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and a block a game. Shooting 21% on threes on 6 a game. So that part isn't improving, but is shooting 71% on twos and has just been terrific for them. They play a terrific team-oriented style. Dennis Schroeder applies so much pressure to your defense. He's averaging 20 points and 9 assists with 2 steals a game. Just doing what he does. He's shooting 70% on 2-pointers, just breaking down the defense and getting into the lane. I'll tell you what, if I were the U.S. and they played Germany, you got to put Schroeder on his backside. The way he's able to get inside, you just got to play physical with him, I would think. But the way he plays is just really good. And the guy that they're getting a lot out of, is a guy that I really didn't regard, is Isak Bonga, the former Laker Wizards guy. He's been surprisingly effective for them. So when you think of their other NBA guys like Mo Wagner, who is also playing well, and Tice, who just knocks people around, he's averaging 10 and 7. But I was not counting on Bonga being this kind of player for them coming off the bench, and so they're just in a really good place right now. If it's Germany, U.S. in the final, that will be a war. Well, bad use of words there as I say that from Paris, but that will be a major fight. But they are Germany and France. And I'll get out of the way. I'm sorry, I'm filibustering, MacMahon.
It's okay.
Steve Kerr came out before the last game against Puerto Rico and was like, "We are trying to get the number 1 seed." And one of the reasons they wanted that was to try to make sure they could get in the best position. And there's a draw. They weren't guaranteed this, but the way this has worked out, where Germany and Canada are on the opposite side of the bracket, I still think having to beat Serbia again is a huge challenge. I would not take that for granted, but having to beat only one of Canada and Germany, and I'll toss France in there, although what you guys are saying is accurate. Having to beat only one of those teams, it's a relatively okay draw.
I'm looking forward to, I think, the likely matchup of Germany and Canada in the semifinals. You talk about, hey, somebody probably needs to put Schroeder on his butt. I would say Lou Dort and Dylan Brooks are pretty good candidates to play that style of
Kelly
basketball.
Olynyk's been known to play rough and tumble too.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're gonna have to guard a guard who's lighting it up, I think Canada's pretty well equipped to do so.
Okay, so let's talk about the Canadians. All right, they have been very impressive here. I said won the group of death. Shea is doing what Shea does. He's averaging 19 points. He's shooting 58% overall, 4 assists, 2 steals, over a block a game. RJ Barrett's playing his best basketball for the national team. I might even say some of his best basketball I've ever seen, considering everything. He's averaging 21 points on 60% shooting 46% on threes, made a crucial one the other day to lock up their win, to lock up their winning the group. And he's averaging 4 assists, and he's been terrific. Dylan Brooks, when he makes his threes, is a force because we know what he's going to do on defense, and he's been making his threes. He's shooting 60% on threes in the tournament.
Beat the Brooks.
But Bontemps, there's a guy. Oh, by the way, Andrew Nembhard also has had some really good games. Got his contract over here, $60 million contract. Coming off the bench, he's had a couple of really nice games. But
Good extension for the Pacers. We never talked about that.
That's true. What was the 3 and 59, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tyrese Halliburton was pretty happy about that, considering they got Siakam and Nembhard extended. There's a big name guy on Canada who's not playing well, Bontemps.
Man, take the floor on this one. We've been chomping at the bit to talk about this.
Read Jamal Murray's numbers.
Jamal Murray. And I'm going to tell you this number first, because this number says a lot. He's averaging 19 minutes a game.
Yes.
He's playing the same amount of time that Andrew Nembhard's playing. Okay.
There's a reason for that.
He is averaging 5.7 points. He's shooting 33% from the field.
Oof.
10% from 3-point range.
Oof.
He hasn't taken that many. He's taken, I think he's 1 of 10 is what I think he is, actually.
Yeah, I would guess if he's taken 10, he's probably made 1 at 10%.
Yeah. He is averaging 5 assists. 19 minutes. Andrew Nembhard and he are basically splitting time.
Well, and he doesn't look good. He looks, to me, he looks a little heavy. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but he doesn't look explosive at all. And, you can small sample size this all you want. The fact he's playing 19 minutes a game, that in and of itself is kind of strange and alarming. Also, coming off of the postseason that he had, he did not, he hit a couple of game winners that were memorable moments against the Lakers. Overall, he had a pretty bad playoffs. Shot 40% from the floor, 31.5% from 3-point range, effective field goal percentage under 45. And I don't know, man, if Jamal, my concern is this: if Jamal Murray's not right, the Nuggets have some serious problems. We've already talked a lot about just how big of a loss Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is. If Jamal Murray's not playing at the sort of level that he did during their championship run, it's going to be tough for the Nuggets to be, a real threat in the Western Conference, as great as Joker is.
It can be tougher for smaller guys, and I mean height-wise, in FIBA to get their same level of scoring because the game is so physical. This is one of the things that Steph is struggling about right now, although, frankly...
How big is Schroeder?
Schroeder's just a speed demon. There's obviously 100 different... I'm trying to make an excuse for him.
The point is, he does not look good. He did not look good during the playoffs. I have not read or heard anything about his health, but
He
just
had that calf injury. Remember, he's playing through that.
Yeah.
He's playing through an elbow injury in the playoffs. I don't know where he's at right now.
I'm saying I haven't read or heard anything, in the Olympics about his health. I don't know if the minutes thing is tied. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I just know that the eyeball test is he's not
Yeah,
passing.
he hasn't looked like himself since the end of the regular season. I mean, he shot 48% from the field, 42% from three in the regular season. He scored 21 a game, and he couldn't shoot the ball in the playoffs. And he's been awful in this Olympic qualifying tournament. And look, like Jamal earned his max, obviously, with the way he played and helping them win a title. But
Yep.
in the aggregate, I think you can make a decent argument. Jamal Murray's a borderline or under max player who's been on a max deal on this last deal. And now you're going into this situation where if you're the Nuggets, like I assume they're going to extend him at the max or close to it. If, obviously with what he's done there, I'm not saying they shouldn't sign him, but if he is less than the player he even was last year, who was, again, as I've talked about before, he continues to be a confounding player because he has these moments in the playoffs where he looks like one of the 10 best players on the planet, but he's never come close to making an all-star team, never come close to making an all-NBA team, not probably a top 10 point guard in the league. Like, if he's your guy going into his 30s that you're going to build with around Nikola Jokic, is that going to be good enough in the West to go up against all these other teams that are rising in the West? It's a fascinating situation, and certainly coming off a very disappointing end of their run in the playoffs, the last few weeks have not been the most encouraging if you're a Nuggets fan about what next season is going to look like.
So, of course, a ton of these guys here in the Olympics got new contracts before the Olympics started, from LeBron James to Franz Wagner, and Jamal Murray didn't, and by the way, there's other guys who could do extensions that, later, like for example, Joel Embiid, he is extension eligible. I believe Kevin Durant is extension eligible. Actually, I think he can add a year.
Yeah, a year or two. Yeah.
But those guys aren't going in the last year of their contracts. Yeah, Durant has 2 years left on his contract. He's eligible to sign a 1-year extension. So that's not, we'll talk about that later. Like what he does there is not like, worth stopping the presses for. But Murray's going into the last year of his contract. This is when you extend if you're him. And by the way, the number is 4 years and 208 if he extends now. And so the question is, does Denver extend him at that number after seeing the way he's played? And also, I'll point out that the way, where he's at in his contract arc, he doesn't have to extend now or in September or in October. He can extend anytime next season.
If he has an opportunity, I would sign it.
He obviously hasn't been offered what he wants, because otherwise he would have signed it like everybody else, right?
Oh yeah.
So, where the Nuggets are on this will be interesting.
Well, and if the Nuggets are, if there are considerations, if they're kind of wondering if they want to make that kind of commitment, what they've seen from him this summer is not convincing.
Well, they've seen 7 or 8 years from him. I mean, I guess that's probably what he would say.
I understand that. And these playoffs were not great. This has been pretty ugly. Unfortunately, the guy does have obviously a significant injury history. I would be concerned about making a $50+ million per year commitment to him right now.
I would continue to maintain that there's going into next season, there's not going to be a team with more pressure on it than, the Phillies probably got the most pressure on it in some respects, but the two teams that have the most pressure on them, I think, are the Sixers and the Nuggets, because the Nuggets have made a lot of big bets this summer on the direction of their team and the decisions they've made. And that is going to also include whatever they decide one way or the other with Jamal Murray, whether an extension gets done or not. So it's either going to be Jamal's on a gigantic extension, and is he going to play like he did during the regular season or since? And if he's not, the question is going to be, all right, well, what's going on? That's going to be the thing that's asked every day till it's signed, right? What is going to happen with him? What is he playing like? What's it going to look like? So, look, maybe Denver will come out and blow the doors off next year, and their young guys will step up and play great, and they'll win close to 60 games. But they've made some bold decisions this summer with a team that most of last year, I and many other people certainly thought were the favorites to win. They blew a 20-point lead in Game 7. They didn't sign KCP. Jamal's not looked good. There's a lot of questions about Denver. There's going to be a ton of pressure on him, I think.
Also, Aaron Gordon is going into the last year of his contract. He's got a player option for 2 years from now, but he can be a free agent next summer. So I would assume at whatever date he's eligible. I don't think he's eligible yet, or if but they're going to need to get something done with him too. So keep an eye on that.
A lot of stuff going on there.
I do want to go over a couple more Olympic things. I just want to talk to you a little bit more about Serbia. Jokic, by the way, I was just talking about, he is averaging 7 assists a game, which I think is I think Schroeder's first, LeBron is second, and Jokic is third, something like that. He's averaging 19 points. Jokic is averaging 19 points. He's only playing 27 minutes. So they've kept his minutes down. He played more than that in the exhibition game against the U.S. in Abu Dhabi 3-4 weeks ago, whenever that was. There's more Jokic playing time available there if Pesic, their head coach, wants to go there. So that's one thing with Jokic. The second thing I'm going to bring up with Serbia is Bogdan Bogdanovic is hot. Bogdanovic is a difference-making player for them on the national team stage. He had 28 points against South Sudan. He's shooting 53% from three-point range, 54% overall. He's averaging 19 points, 4 assists. The Bogdan Jokic tandem, if they're hot, is a problem. And I will say it again. When the U.S. plays Serbia, it's an uncomfortable style of game. When the U.S. plays Canada, while Canada is much more talented in their rotation, and especially if you've got Dylan Brooks out there making threes and et cetera, RJ Barrett making threes, certainly from a man-to-man standpoint, Canada's not comparable to Serbia. But the U.S. is comfortable playing Canada. The U.S. is not comfortable playing Serbia. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, Canada just really lacks in size too, right?
Like, and their bigs and the bigs they have are not playing well, even with by their standards.
And they don't play big. They don't really play big either, right? Like Kelly Olynyk's a good player, but he doesn't play.
He's not playing much in all honesty.
No, right. I mean, like Dwight Powell is not
hard to beat out Dwight Powell.
Well, it's you look at their team, and especially when they play the U.S.
Kem Birch
even
is
the fours on the
much.
U.S. Right. I mean, even the fours on the U.S. give them a lot of trouble inside size wise. Like it's just that's a tough matchup for them, where the Serbians are always going to have plenty of size inside, obviously led by Jokic.
The Australians, they went 1-2 in pool play in the group of death. Josh Giddey is being very effective. He's sniffing a triple-double. He's averaging 15, 7 assists and 9 rebounds, shooting 47% from the field. Actually, he shot the three-pointer not too bad, 43%.
And you thought they should have given up that they should have gotten a pick in that deal.
I know. They're going to wait till they give him that contract extension. It's going to be amazing. That's actually going to be a spectacular game, Serbia versus Australia. When it comes to what else is going on with Team USA, Steve Kerr, I think, has done a really good job getting this team into a position that they're in. He basically low-key told people to back the F off of him with a couple of interviews this week. And he did it with a smile, and he did it with without, making any sort of waves. And also, the post-game interviews are not available to any audio or visual media right now. When he does interviews at practice, or we've interviewed him on ESPN a few times outside the Olympic venues, he obviously will see him, but all the interviews in the arenas you can't see, so they're not.
Why
unless
is
you're,
that?
The French know
Like,
best.
you can't see them?
No, I can see them, and I can
So you're
write
saying, like,
everything he says.
they're not like recorded on camera.
Oh, well, when you said
Yeah.
audio or video, I just didn't know if you like were unable to record them.
No, I
No,
can
like the
record it. I
post-game
just
podium
can't.
stuff
Okay.
is not
I
on
just
camera.
can't play it for you. Look, the French, they have decided that there shall be no press conferences until there's a medal on the line. There shall be no good merch, and there shall be no press conferences. And because there's no press conferences, there's no like universal feed that we normally see. You'll notice you don't see any press conferences from anybody after these games, other than like NBC on the sideline. If NBC doesn't take a camera, you're not seeing it. And so Steve Kerr came out the other day and basically was like, this is not the NBA. This is not a soap opera. If I don't play somebody, it's not because I think the guy stinks, or, I think he should be traded or whatever. I'm trying to win 6 games here. I don't care what anybody else says. And
he's got a 40-minute game, and he's got 12 guys that are extremely, most of them multi-time all-stars. The one exception, Derek White, a championship role player. Like, dude, you can't play all 12 guys.
Yeah. Right. And he's also said, why don't you give these guys some credit? These guys know what they signed up for. They knew they weren't going to sign up to all get 20 shots a game. Why are you making a deal of something that these guys don't necessarily make a deal of?
Hold on, though. Because Bam Adebayo kind of went at you a little bit. And
he did. It was kind of good-natured. But only kind of.
Only kind of. A lot of truth was told in jest from his perspective. But, and his thing, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but obviously the Tatum sitting in the opener, the Olympic opener, was the big story, right? And so you're on TV and you're talking about that, and you're basically telling, the people, this is going to be a game by game thing. Next game, Tatum's going to be back in the rotation. This is when they're playing South Sudan. And basically you said, it very well could be at the expense of one of their 3 centers.
Yeah.
And so you threw out the possibility of, hey, it might be at the expense of Bam Adebayo.
Yeah.
Well, if you really wanted to have created waves and, done some, finger firing, windy type of work, you could have said it might be at the expense of Joel Embiid, which we actually talked about on the last podcast. And I brought it up as a hypothetical that won't happen, except for it did happen.
It did.
The next
game.
Yeah. But then
Bam, which again, Steve Kerr took the player who he didn't think out of his 12 that was not going to do it, and he put him on the bench.
Well, and it was about matchups, and at that point it was also about merit. Let's just call it like it is. But Bam came out post game, and he did a little tweet thing at you where he put some, I never know how to say GIF, whatever it is, of I think it was 50 Cent making a confused face, retweeting your clip, and then he said, "What did he say to you? Like, what, my accolades don't stand up or something like that?"
Well, he goes, by the way, Brian, I can defend 1 through 5, which, the thing about it is, I did a big piece on Bam this last year where I sat with him and talked to him all about it. Like, I have a relationship with Bam. I mean, we're not hanging out, but I have a relationship with Bam. 2 years ago, I voted Bam for Defensive Player of the Year, not first team All-NBA, actually Defensive Player of the Year. So Bam knows that I
think both things can be true here, right? Like, you can have an ego and be like, why are you saying I shouldn't be playing? And also, if it comes to it and you're not going to play, also not throw a fit. Like, both things are true.
Honestly, guys, it was good natured.
No,
you don't see the video, but like, it was good natured.
I agree. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just making the point that, like, this is what I said about the Tatum thing the last time we did the podcast. Everybody signed up for this stuff knowing how this is going to go. Doesn't mean everybody's thrilled. Not going to be thrilled if you're not playing. But at the end of the day, these guys all know the team they're on. They're all happy to be there. Like, it's not, this isn't their normal team. It's not normal situations, and it's fine.
I have 0.0 issue with the player holding the media accountable. If I say that Bam could get fewer minutes, and in fact, he just had an 18-point game and played awesome,
right.
he should be like, you're full of it, you know?
Well,
so that's fine.
But the whole thing, you didn't say, hey, Bam's getting benched. You said, that, hey, this could happen. And your point was Tatum's going to be back in the rotation, likely at the expense of a center. And if it's just about accolades, it's like, because, hey, Bam's a top 20 NBA player, but he's never been all NBA. He's never been a champion. And, the guys so Tatum, fresh off a championship, a perennial first team all NBA player, Embiid, a recent MVP, several first team all NBA honors. Like if it's just about accolades with those three, Bam is the one who's sitting. But Steve Kerr's point is it ain't about, it's not about accolades, and it's not like all these guys are stars. They can all play. So it's going to be about fit and matchups and those kind of things.
Look, in this setting, everybody's still learning about Steve Kerr's still learning about the team, so whatever. But Bam obviously played awesome that game, and he's going to keep playing because he can defend 1 through 5. It is a big thing. And I will say that a couple of things. First off, Jason Tatum has responded well to the benching. First off, he's started the last 2 games, and in this game against Puerto Rico, which Puerto Rico had no size, wasn't really much of a contest, but Tatum had 10 rebounds in that game. Like one of the things that challenges this team is defensive rebounding. They're a little susceptible to giving up offensive rebounds. And Tatum took that to heart.
It's been a strength of Tatum's all the way through. We talked about it a bunch during the playoff run, how he had that streak of series with double-digit averages and rebounds.
Right. So he was back doing that. He was rebounding really well. And so that's been, been working well. And, Embiid played, pretty good against Puerto Rico. Again, he had a size advantage. I think they had one player over 6'8". And so you knew in the game plan.
Played well against that team.
Yeah. But Embiid's getting booed heavily, and look, we've gone through the whole France thing ad nauseum. He's had to answer it a lot of times. He keeps talking about it, but he's egging the crowd on. He's like, "Go ahead and boo me." He's like, they boo your own players in Philly, so why wouldn't they boo guys they don't like here? The interesting thing that he said, and this has been said a little bit before, is he said, when it came down to France versus the U.S., I felt more comfortable with the guys on Team USA.
Well, and I don't think anybody criticizes him choosing to play for Team USA. I think it's just the process of the way he went about that decision, kind of leading France on, that people are upset about.
So Ant had a funny back and forth with, and I don't have this exactly verbatim in front of me, but Ant had a funny back and forth with a French reporter after, Embiid was getting booed. And Ant's like, I don't get it. You guys got Victor and Rudy. Why do you need Joel? You don't want to play there because, you guys got centers. And the French reporter was like, well, because he's an MVP and, he could help the team.
Yes, which again is the real reason why they're booing it. The process doesn't matter. If he just said without any, listen, I'm telling you again, I'm not trying to defend the process here of how he chose which country to play for. I'm just saying the guy chose not to play for France. He was going to get booed by the French no matter what. The crowds there have been unbelievable. They're going crazy whenever anybody wins a medal for anything. So, of course they're going to boo the guy.
If he just decided to play for Team USA, didn't have a international free agency tour, then he's not getting booed in France.
I will fundamentally disagree. Because you could have played for him the whole time anyway.
Well, this goes back to my whole thing about when LeBron...
Get his passport there, bro.
This goes back to my whole thing about when LeBron left Cleveland. Because of the decision, people would say, well, it wasn't that he left, it was how he left. That was like the mantra in Cleveland.
Right.
Because, it's bad form to criticize a player's agency,
Because Kevin Durant's departure from Oklahoma City was not, it was all gumdrops and lollipops when he went back to Oklahoma City. There was no issues with that.
Right. And that was just cover to give to make everybody feel better when they were.
It's not different. It's the same.
No,
it's the same concept.
Different. It is different. France never had to be involved as a possibility here. He's the one who put France in. It's not like France drafted him.
No.
There's a lot of positives to getting a European Union passport.
Yes.
MacMahon.
Also, the French were recruiting him.
Yeah, he can go play in the EuroLeague. I think he probably really
It's
needs
not
that.
like the French. It's not like the French said, "Oh man, we just have discovered that Joel Embiid is eligible to play for us," because he called us and said, "Hey guys, I'd like a passport." I mean, that's not what happened here. I mean, come on.
In all honesty,
Ah.
like he left Cameroon when he was 16. His basketball life has been in the U.S. Cameroon had made it to the qualification stage. Cameroon actually beat Brazil
Man,
in
I
that
tell you, if you
tournament
put
last
him
year.
and Siakam on Cameroon, it would have been a pretty damn interesting
Well,
team.
this is
no
what
kidding.
this is what I'm saying. Like Cameroon beat Brazil. Brazil is in the quarterfinals. Had he played for Cameroon, who knows what happened? Maybe they're the ones who come out of Latvia.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a second African team, and maybe they're in the quarterfinals with Embiid and Siakam. I don't know. Like, he made a choice.
My only point is just that whatever the process would have been, the fans there would have known that the former MVP of the NBA could have played for their team and chose not to, and they would have booed him. That's all.
Agree.
Well, we can agree to disagree.
What Steve Kerr has got the team in a spot. First off, LeBron is playing spectacular as a playmaker. He started at point guard the last 2 games. Drew Holiday will be back in the starting lineup. He had an ankle injury. They kept him out for precaution, but even with Drew Holiday back,
allowed Steve Kerr a 1-game reprieve from the whole who's out of the rotation today.
That's true. Although Tyrese Halliburton was out of the rotation, he didn't play until the second.
He's kind of been like, who's the other odd man out?
Right. That's true. It did give him a reprieve. Even with Drew Holiday back in the starting lineup, which he apparently will be, LeBron's the point guard. Mm-hmm. And LeBron is, I think he had 21 assists in the 3 games. So
is LeBron? No, Huertas is older. I was going to ask if he's the oldest player in the Olympics field.
I think Huertas got him by like 18 months.
Well,
yeah,
I still maintain my stance.
Rudy Fernandez, I believe, is a retired now with Spain getting knocked out, and he was
yeah.
So
I maintain my stance from the beginning, which is that Team USA is way, way ahead of the field, and these final 3 games should remain not very competitive.
They are. Their average margin of victory is 24. And things are going well, and Steph hasn't shot well yet, which at any moment Steph could hit 5 threes, and that could be that. He is having a little bit of trouble with the physicality, but he is also missing wide open looks. They are generating open looks for Steph, and he is not hitting them. And I will wager on Steph hitting them. So there was a game coming where Steph is going to light it up.
And at the same time, it's also a reminder that, as we talked about with the South Sudan game, there's one. We got the thumbs down on Brian's screen there. The thumbs down for the merch and the.
Did I get a thumbs down? I didn't do anything with
you had a thumbs down on your screen. I don't know why. But it comes on the same thing we talked about the South Sudan game too, where despite the fact that I do think they're going to win these games comfortably and win the gold medal, you are in a single elimination knockout tournament now. And if you have one game where you give up a bunch of offensive rebounds and you give a bunch of threes like they did against South Sudan, and they lose the math, all of a sudden you could be in a tighter game than you should be. So that remains to me the thing to watch. Is there a game where they get smoked at the 3-point line and smoked in the possession game? And if they do, then there's a chance for some interesting stuff to happen. That's
true. I'll also say that the second unit, which has altered a little bit, but has basically been Derek White, Bam Adebayo, Kevin Durant, and Ant Edwards. The 5th player has been different. Sometimes it's been Anthony Davis. Sometimes it's been Drew Holiday. But basically,
I think it's usually been in Davis, right? Other than the one game when Embiid didn't play.
Right. But yeah, you're right. Most of the time it has been. But you're looking at Bam and Davis together, and Derek White and Ant, or Derek White and Holiday, with the all-time scoring leader for USA basketball for the men. He's about to pass Lisa Leslie for the men and women. That lineup just kills.
And that remains the difference. It's like, again, that would be the best team in the world by a country mile, and it's the second unit. Like that's why, despite everything else, still a very big gap. At least for now.
You have to say country kilometer when you're in Europe.
That's true. A lot of kilometers between.
All right. Well, we're going to have some interesting games this week. I think
there's corner.
And we not talked about we didn't talk about Jarrett Allen. Has that
Oh,
happened
that's
since last
right.
class?
Cavs corner. Cavs
yeah.
corner. The
Come on,
MVP
man.
has been extended. Big
People
moment.
expect, when there's big Cavs corner developments, people expect.
This is
I know
the
you're
biggest.
doing
The
12
MVP locked up.
radio appearances a week in Cleveland, but come on.
Yeah. MVP locked up long term.
Yeah, he had 2 years left on his deal. They added 3 more for about 93 million, I think. 31.
It's about 30-ish.
Basically 30 a year.
Yeah. They said that we're going to have Jarrett Allen for his prime.
Or the option of it. I will point out that this was signed more than 6 months in advance of the trade deadline.
Uh-huh.
I'm just saying. I'm not saying he's
No, I
getting.
agree with you.
I'm
I'm
just saying
nodding.
that they, and
I believe they announced the signing on Friday, which would be August 2nd.
Yeah, and the trade deadline is February 6th. It's more than 6 months. And listen, there will be interest in Jarrett Allen if they do decide to split their bigs. There would be interest in him, and especially knowing that you've got him locked up to. I know the number. I know it's a big number, but as the cap goes up, it's not going to be necessarily a huge chunk of the cap.
Well, the Cavs
I don't think it's necessarily a commitment to keeping the core together.
The Cavs made the second round of the playoffs without LeBron for the first time since the 90s, and then have extended 3 of their 4 best players since then, including Donovan, where there was a measure of drama.
Yeah.
In a vacuum, it sounds great.
Their starting lineup is extended for the next couple of years and for way over the cap. So, it's a commitment, at least on paper, to spend a ton of money on that group. And, it's going to be interesting this year with Kenny Atkinson. And, let's see what developments Evan Mobley can make coming off this huge extension he signed. Let's see what he and Jarrett Allen look like. Let's see if Darius Garland's still there and what he and Donovan Mitchell look like. And what's a more competitive and deeper Eastern Conference probably this year than before. Like it's Cavs making a lot of bets on continuity, driving them forward.
Well, you know what I like to say, a day after you sign a guy to a contract, can you trade him? We've had executives, try to fix. They've tried to talk me out of that, and don't say ask if you can trade him in a year. But I think even they can't trade him right now, obviously. But like if they had to trade him today on this contract, they could.
Yes.
So if that is a big standard in how you evaluate a contract, they pass the test. And they could trade Donovan in 5 seconds on this contract.
Yeah.
And they could probably trade Evan Mobley on this contract too. So you're making the evaluation at the time the contracts are being signed. They're signed in the summer of 2024. All 3, we say they could trade, although the Mobley one is the biggest sort of quote unquote risk.
Yeah, but I don't have an issue with them giving Mobley. And I like you can't, like you're not going to, the guys, there's no way he would have taken less than.
Of course not. Of course not.
Like, so you're not going to let him walk. You don't want to play the restricted free agency game with a guy who you are hoping is going to be part of your.
Well, wait a minute. I mean, just as a philosophical thing before we go, why not? Why not have him next year go out and make the All-Star team? Why not have him go out and play like a certifiable 100%
and let him go into restricted and let him go into restricted free agency?
I mean, listen, you could still offer him the full max. You could give him the maximum qualifying offer next summer.
I mean, you don't actually believe what you're saying there.
No, because I'll tell you, like risk is the guy who just retired, right? Gordon Hayward, and what happened in Utah? They said, well, we don't really want to give you the max, but we'll match it if you get an offer sheet. Went out, he got the offer sheet, and that offer sheet had a player option for the 4th year. And so instead of having a guy locked up for 5 years, you got him locked up for 3 years. And look, then
I'm just saying
you've kind of spoiled the relationship a little bit. And after those 3 years are up, you lose them for nothing. That's why you don't play it out with a guy you want to be part of your core for the next decade.
I just think in general, we have seen teams skew way too conservative in these negotiations when they have the hammer in these negotiations. And we saw both the Cavs and the Magic in particular this summer give max extensions to players who have not sniffed making an all-star team yet. And maybe they'll work out great in both cases. I really like Franz Wagner. I really like Evan Mobley. Like that long-term potential-wise, they could both be great players. Franz is playing great in the Olympics. He played great in the World Cup. Obviously, he had a year where he didn't hit shots from three. But like both those guys to this point, to me, have not played like max players. They may in the future, but you're giving them everything now without really any downside being taken back from them. That's all I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
I just think it's been interesting to watch these negotiations have sort of skewed in the direction of let's just give these young guys the whole bag. And look, guys get the bag. That's great. I'm not against anybody getting paid. I just think teams in general have been too conservative in these negotiations and not willing to push it a little bit and just be like, all right, like, let's have a bit of a negotiation here. That's all.
All right. Thus concludes Cavs Corner for today. Thank you to Jackson, our producer. Thank you to Bontemps. Enjoy your vacation over there. You're taking time out to do this. Thank you. MacMahon, enjoy LA. And everybody enjoy the Olympic quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. We'll talk to you
Enjoy
later
the
this
Olympic
week.
merch.
Adios, amigos.